So in the mirror, I really want to show you guys this because it's also an interesting matchup to min-max, and because Mono Blue is, a very powerful deck right now, it's going to be, a very common matchup that you guys are going to have to avoid. Now, I hooked my boy Locken up with the same list that I'm using, the 44 card variants, but most of the Mono Blue players you'll see on ladder will probably be running worse versions of the list, because again, this is probably the strongest version of the list right now. There might be like 1 or 2 tweaks you could in theory make, but I'm very, very confident in this current 44 card list that most people aren't going to be running. So you're going to have a bit of an advantage on most of your Mono Blue opponents just because you watched this video and they didn't. So let me go ahead and explain to you the most important things about playing the mirror, because this is actually a pretty different matchup. You're going to be playing for fairly different conditions, and it's a very hard matchup to sort of pinpoint the most important play opportunities, right? What I mean by this is how the mirror will work is because both sides' heroes are so squishy and AoE chaining is so important. Man, not drawing Ignite in either of these games is a little sad because this card is pretty powerful, but what are you going to do? Basically, games in Mono Blue will come down to usually one of the players stealing initiative, chaining hard. It usually happens on mana turn 6 or 7. One of the players will just achieve total control over the game, like I was doing in the last few turns of that game. You just lock the opponent out of play, right? You secure a lane with a Glyph, you nuke things over and over again, steal initiative with Arcane Assault, and you just dictate the entire outcome of the game at that point in time, right? And whichever player can just do that in the mirror will just win, right? So looks like we want to Prey on the Weak on the right side here. 4 dogs is pretty good, but you got to be really careful with these swarm cards, Prey on the Weak and Dimensional Portal in the mirror. Always play around at any cost. You have to assume they have it, and you have to be very careful about committing too many resources to a specific lane. So right now, Ignite, we don't really want to spawn Kana into the Ignite lane. Let's go ahead and just develop her mid. Kind of the next best thing, we're going into this melee creep reliably. We expect his Kana to probably go right, or sorry, left. Did I say right? I think I said right both times. I meant left. I think he potentially could have misplayed by playing Ignite turn 1. I haven't done too much testing with this, but I kind of suspect it's actually better to wait to not Ignite on the first turn of the game and let them play their Kana first, maybe play something like Prey on the Weak first, and then take an Ignite on the Prey on the Weak. I'm pretty confident that's going to be the stronger way to play this. So right now we have to be thinking about initiative already. Do we want initiative mid for anything? No, in these early turns of the game, it's typically stronger to not have initiative than it is to have initiative. So we're just going to go ahead and play out the Sanctum here. We're looking at a potential Prey on the Weak on the right side. We can summon 4 dogs. Ooh, he prayed pretty early here. Interesting. So this is the point where if we had Ignite, we would be saving it, and then we'd be very excited that he just prayed here. I think he prayed a little bit early. The Zeus playing a spell right now actually kills a few of his... it kills his dog, and it actually kills this ogre. And getting hero kills early with this matchup is actually nice. When you find a Stonehall Cloak, it helps you really survive the onslaught of things to come. So this is pretty interesting. We really want to trigger this. I think we might just be forced to use Diabolic Revelation here. It's not an amazing Diabolic because it will be killing off a couple of our creeps. You really want a Diabolic from the right lane, not the left lane in general, because on the right lane, more of your units will already be dead, so it comes at less of a cost. But as we can see, these 2 melee creeps are already dying to Ignite next turn. This basically just triggers Zeus's passive in a powerful way. It allows us to just kill this dog, kill this ogre, which is nice. And we drew the Ignite. Hey, that's really powerful. We can even curve this if we want. So if we play this in something like left, we could be looking at a kill there on these dogs. Leaving these dogs alive is definitely a little awkward, and this is the Kana lane, so I think it's a pretty premier Ignite. Of course, we don't have to play it exactly here. We want to use Sanctum on the right side, and we're just looking to not have initiative. I think in these early turns, having initiative is basically always a bad thing, which is kind of paradoxical because that's very backwards from how most people think about it. Because usually initiative in like the late turns of the game will win you the game, but in these kind of mid game turns, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, when development is happening, you kind of want to usually be able to respond to what your opponent is doing, unless you have something like a Tyler State Sensor, which really allows you to capitalize off of initiative early in a really unique way. Because most things, you want to be reactive, right? When your opponent plays a Stonehall Elite, you want to be the one going second so you can Viscous Nasal Goo that Stonehall Elite, right? Or what have you. So we've got Prey for 4 dogs here, but dogs into, you know, the melee creeps is a pretty weak exchange. If we dog here, we're probably going to come flag, and always think ahead with this deck. Left lane, Skywrath comes in, 5 mana, come flag into this lane. All these melee creeps will be at 2 health from being punched by the dogs, so they all just die from that, which is not bad. We could also save the Prey on the weak and just kind of avoid this mess entirely. Prey on the weak used on the right side. Could multicast with the Ogre, which is nice as well. I think I'm okay taking a little bit of chip damage here, and I think I will prefer using Prey on the weak on the right side. We don't need initiative in the early turns. Basically, there's a very, very fast flip, right? In turn 4, 5, in turns 4 and 5, you don't want initiative. In turn 6, you suddenly very, 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 very much want initiative. So we've got a Sanctum already on left. We're going to go ahead and develop a Sanctum on right. Usually, the first Sanctum goes on left. The second Sanctum goes on right. This is not just for this matchup, but in general. And in doing so, the Sanctum also allows you to do kind of a pass stalling, right? This actually allows us to get our Prey on the weak out, which is pretty nice here, because we don't have initiative. If we Prey on the weak first, A, he could just add any cost us, right? Which is nasty. But B, I mean, even if he has nothing unique to this situation, his Zeus Static Field just kills off this dog, right? Which is exactly the opposite of what happened left on our side, because he went first off initiative with Prey on the dogs, and we tapped Sanctum. Our Zeus killed the dog for free, right? Whereas this dog is trumping a Zeus and dealing 2 damage. That's just a nice exchange that we're just getting free value out of. Fur-lined Mantle is actually really tempting in this matchup. Let's go ahead and buy the Signet Ring, and if there's not a Stonehall Cloak under it, we might actually consider the Fur-lined Mantle. Health is so important in this matchup.
15 seconds remaining.
And we can't actually buy anything under the Signet Ring or the Fountain Flask. I think we actually will go ahead and take the Fur-lined Mantle here. A very unique situation for it, but this is why Stonehall Cloaks are really important, and early kills actually matter in this matchup because you want the Stonehall Cloaks, because you want the Fur-lined Mantle. It all kind of comes together in that way. We want to open ourselves up for the Conflagration, so Skywrath just got to go left here. And we've even got a pretty good Annihilation if we draw it in the next turn on mana 6, because this is the kind of lane. We're not really committed here. We're pretty ready to just start blowing this up. There's the Annihilation. Sweet. Third Sanctum. So 3 Sanctum is kind of overkill to draw. Like, you really, really are happy to see the first one. You're very happy to see the second one. It's like the 3rd Sanctum is like, you know, it's okay. You know, I'm sort of happy seeing it. You know, it's not really doing that much, but hey, it's still a Sanctum. And these cards are really, really imperative towards this deck strategy, because the whole point is in these last few turns of the game, you are chaining cards that blow up the board, like Eclipse and Mystic Flare, with cards that steal you initiative back so you can keep doing it, right? Without Sanctum, that would not be possible at all. Sanctum completely carries this deck. So we gave him a sort of decent add-on cost there. Not an incredible one, because he did kill off 2 of his own creeps to do that. But he stopped our Conflagration middle, which really slows our roll. If his Luna hits our Luna with its Lucent Beam, maybe that's a little sad for us as well. Not the biggest deal on the planet. The scariest thing about the circumstance is he's secured initiative into the mana 6 turn, right? Because, you know, on the right side, presumably he'll have an Arcane Assault he can use that we can't counter, which is really spooky. Either way, at this point in time, we have no choice but to develop the Conflagration. It's just a little bit too powerful here, and nothing, you know, I mean, there's really not too much of an argument outside of using it mid, I think, in this case. Using it left is kind of nice because, I mean, Kana is spawning things left right now, but we're at the mana turn where things start blowing up, and being able to just stop this creep roll is kind of nice here. Not really an amazing Conflagration. It would have been nicer if we could have got it off from this left side here. But yeah, Mana 6 is where things just start going off, because that's where everything is enabled, right? All of your nuke things and your Glyph of Confusion, maybe most importantly of all, to just reclaim control of the board. The reason why fighting for left lane is so important is because of this card, Thunder God's Wrath, particularly. I mean, left lane is the strongest because it goes first, right? We all know that. But it's really because of Thunder God's Wrath in this deck. Thunder God's Wrath is kind of what pushes that over the top. Let's go ahead and give a Furland Mantle to our Luna here. She's very happy to see that. Because Thunder God's Wrath, if it kills things from left to right, it basically locks them out of a play that turn. That's incredibly powerful when that happens, and that's why, you know, you want to be using your first Sanctum left, you want to Thunder Gods from left, you want to maybe sometimes put your Ogre left when you're on your Thunder Gods turn, just to clone Thunder Gods. It's basically most of the reason why dominating left is important. And that's why, like, Glyph of Confusion and just controlling left lane is very powerful, and why we're pretty sad that he controls left and we don't. So now we have to think, you know, next turn ahead on top of, like, the Kana health. The Kana's going down to 5. She's effectively going down to 4 because of Knight. Do we need to Signet Ring this? And are we afraid of, you know, maybe him having initiative, right? If we don't do anything to this Kana, it's very possible that he won't... that he will have to steal initiative back with an Arcane Assault. And honestly, forcing an Assault out of him has value, right? Because he wants to be saving these as long as he can. So we want to just force him to use an Assault if he wants initiative, which he does, by the way. Initiative is super important. Right now, the game feels a lot less comfortable for us. He is doing pretty well. He's got pretty much everything he wants. He's not really playing for initiative in the most key turn of the game. We're going to go ahead and ignore a TP scroll. This deck actually ignores TP scrolls fairly often because your heroes are just constantly dying. And now we need to think about kind of how we're going to reclaim control over this left lane, because no longer does Mystic Flare really do too much to something like these creeps, for example. We might be looking at an Annihilation right at this point. Annihilation looks pretty good, and we have to think about, you know, which hero we'd rather preserve. The Ogre multicasting potential has definitely more value than the Thunder, than the static field off of Zeus. So I think Zeus goes right and Ogre goes left. Now it's going to come down to what we draw a little bit here. We do have the ability to annihilate both lanes if we want. These are both pretty good annihilations. He's got a pretty good annihilation mid, too. It's a good draw. Very good draw. Could blow up the Ogre here if we want. Unfortunately, you know, it's not amazing because his kind of survives and our Ogre dies to it. We're looking at probably a better enemy cost on the right side, where our Zeus survives and, you know, well, I mean, his Zeus's static field will probably just blow it up at that point. If we ignite the right side, his Zeus goes down to 8, but enemy cost still doesn't kill him. He'll still have 1 health remaining there. Zeus going down to 8 means that using the Mystic Flare won't really help either. This is actually a really tricky situation to play.
Five seconds remaining. 3, 2.
I don't really have a hand here that can do that much on this board, unfortunately. Yeah, that's not surprising. Yeah, that's a very powerful Magic Email, and he hits the Sanctum too. This is pretty bad. I mean, he's got everything going for him in this game. We're going to need to kind of find a way to come back from this. We're losing by quite a bit right now. So having initiative on the right side is fairly important. But again, there's this sort of initiative zigzag. Like, if we play off of initiative on the right side, it means we're kind of giving up initiative on the left side next turn, which, if anything, is probably detrimental. But if he has his own glyph, then we're a little screwed either way. We could take something like a Sanctum here. I don't think he really wants his Luna to die, and I'm honestly pretty okay if he's going to go ahead and give this up. Just developing Sanctums is pretty important. We could have gone for the left lane on the Sanctum, since we've lost our Sanctum left, but we don't even have 1 Thunder Gods in hand, so it's less important here. Not having a single Thunder Gods in hand is definitely kind of awkward coming up on the mana 7 turn here. Fairly clunky hand going for us. But yeah, we're definitely behind in this game. And it's really hard to kind of restabilize the board in the blue mirror. Usually the person that is behind at like mana 6 is going to be the one that just like gets blown out and loses the game because of it. Very interesting Diabolic. He's going to go ahead and sacrifice his own Luna and set his units up here into kill range on the Zeus because of it. I think that Diabolic is a pretty staggeringly huge misplay. I think that easily could have just lost him the game. I mean, if we had an Arcane Assault, what we do is we at any cost right now, we blow everything up, keep our Zeus alive, tap our Sanctum. Well, we ignite then somewhere. Then we tap Sanctum into Arcane Assault, steal initiative back for left, and then just blow this up. If we had a single Arcane Assault right now, that Sanctum or that Diabolic would have just lost in the game. And you got to be very, very careful about using it like that. Obviously, we don't really have that resource, so we don't really have the ability to control left, which really sucks for us. But at the very least, we can look to control right with something like a Glyph of Confusion. At any cost, it's still the play here. It's just too valuable not to do. And again, keep in mind, because of how Static Field works, the units between Zeus will die, they'll slide together, and then Static Field will trigger, killing off his Zeus, right? So that sequencing is pretty important. Obviously, igniting left is looking pretty good. I mean, that's just the only value you're getting out of that. And now we can set up Glyph on one of these two lanes which we control, right? You want to put Glyph on a lane where you control and the opponent doesn't necessarily. In this case, it's going to be the middle lane, just to basically stop him from being able to get a grasp here. Now, if he has something like Thunder Gods or double Thunder Gods, we might be kind of screwed, because of course then our Luna dies, and we no longer have control over our Glyph lane. Glyph is, of course, a really risky effect, because if you use it and then your opponent is able to steal control of that lane, they basically own the Glyph, right? The Glyph is just like allowing whoever controls the lane to keep controlling the lane. So we got a lot of money. Now we're getting our Stonehall Cloaks, but it's kind of late. Jasper Daggers versus Potion of Knowledge is pretty interesting. In this hand, we have to take the Potion of Knowledge. The Jasper Daggers' singular use in this matchup is purging off the opponent's Glyph of Confusion. Now, keep in mind, you can't purge off your own Glyph of Confusion with Jasper Daggers, which is very unfortunate. And we basically now have to evaluate what putting Sky left does. So right now he has one Ignite. Let me finish my thought. Jasper Daggers, you can purge off your opponent's Glyph of Confusion, but usually they'll blow you up because they'll secure initiative by doing that. Okay, so Skywrath wants to go left. We want to be able to annihilate, but in most cases we're usually just forcing out either a Flare or an Eclipse, and in which case we might stop him from using Thunder Gods on us, which is actually pretty nice. I don't mind this just coming down to stop him from using Thunder Gods. But if this was like mana 6 instead, putting Skywrath left might just be unnecessary suicide. Or if he had like a Zeus instead of an Ogre, I'd be scared to do this because Ignite plus Thunder Gods plus Static would just kill the Skywrath on the spot, and I wouldn't be slowing down his game plan at all. Here, this could force him to make a more awkward play than he otherwise would. We got to always be aware of our Eclipse charges as well. If he does nothing, if he just Thunder Gods or something, we will just blow him out of this game with Eclipse. We got two cunning plans at this point in time. Usually, you know, when in doubt, use these on the Ogre lane. When an Ogre multicasts Cunning Plan or Compel, it's ridiculous value. You're basically just drawing a free card for no reason. And, you know, if you draw these early, you're floating a ton of mana to be able to just kind of get them down. If you draw them late, you usually have Sanctums develop, so you kind of have infinite mana at that point, or more mana than you know how to use. So there's not really a downside to having these in hand. Okay, he takes the Thunder God, so this will help shut out mid a little bit. It kind of shuts out right in that way. Right now we have a Blink Dagger, so we're going to be able to recontrol the other lanes, and we have to decide whether we want to use Eclipse or Annihilation here. Now Eclipse is only going to get better over time. We have the ability to kind of blink over and resecure right and start using our mana with the Skywrath that we keep alive in this case here. If we do that, it's more likely we want to blink over the Luna because we're getting extra Eclipse charges by doing that. If we Eclipse here, we keep our Skywrath alive, and we can Stonehall Cloak it for kind of future value. We don't want 3 heroes to die on the same turn. I think Eclipsing here has to be the better play. But if we were in a board state where using, if we didn't have the Stonehall Cloaks to heal the Skywrath, or if we had already burned through Eclipses, I would honestly maybe save it, just because Annihilation is, you know, a much less valuable tool. So it's definitely kind of safer to use it in that way. So we're obviously going to do this. Now we can blink the Skywrath to the right side if we want. The thing is, we want to blink the Luna for the sake of drawing future Eclipses, but because of Glyph of Confusion, it's kind of stopping us from doing that, right? Because Glyph of Confusion is just all about the, you know, we need to keep a hero in this lane. Unfortunately, if Luna stays in this lane, she's just going to die because this Ignite will kill her over 2 turns. So maybe there's not really a great solution to this. It's possible that we're going to have to blink the Luna anyway. Very awkward situation to be in. Yeah, very unfortunate. If we had a health item here in shop, This would be much less awkward. So basically all we can do is just cycle these. Try to draw into our Arcane Assaults is mostly what we're looking for here. Prayer in the Weak wouldn't be bad, but he does have Ignite there, and of course we have the Glyph, so it's just feeding him gold for no reason. Foresight's a pretty good draw. I mean, at this point, we're just cycling, right? It's just infinite cycle. And when you draw your Cunning Plans and your Compels this late into the game, you just use them for free cycle. You're just digging deeper into your deck. Just use them on nothing to accomplish nothing. Small pro tip, if you're against red, you want to Cunning Plan your units to the sides so that they're less vulnerable to something like a Berserker's Call coming down. Here, it's not really going to matter. There's the Thunder Gods. It's kind of a useful draw to have at this point in time, but nothing we're super excited about. Not too sure what he's thinking about here. He's got triple deployment coming in. We really do mostly want to have Arcane Assaults here. Like, imagine if this Luna was Ogre. Like, look at how this turn was playing out. We have double Cunning Planned, we've Compelled, we've Foresighted. We're about to blink her right to just have another mana pool for Aghanim Sanctum as well, it looks like. The odds of her getting slammed with the Thunder Gods is really high if we do that. But it'll at least demand it. Huh. He might not have the second Thunder Gods.
15 seconds remaining.
I think we have to blink this Luna right. I mean, it gives us another Eclipse charge as well if we want to use Eclipse left, right? It has 6 charges now. If we're using Eclipse anywhere but mid, basically, it gives this another Eclipse card charge when you blink her to the next lane over, right? Which is nice. It's very nice. There is one cheeky play that I could actually consider doing here. This is extreme cheek, and I've never done this before, but there was actually a consideration, instead of blinking her over, to equip Revtil Signet Ring on her over the Furlined Mantle. This would reduce her health past 0, and it would kill her, but she would give less gold from the Signet Ring, and she would not die to the upkeep on Ignite. She'd be safe from like Thunder Gods at Ignite by dying. Again, keep in mind, it seems backwards, but when your heroes die, they are safe. They're in Fountain and they're ready to come back. When your heroes are alive at low health, they can get blown out all at once by something like an upkeep kill or a Thunder Gods, and then that's game losing when that happens, right? I think that's a little too cheeky for this situation, though. Really wish we had the Arcane Assault here. Or maybe a Glyph of Confusion in a lane we could protect. Blink Daggers are not amazingly what you want to see here. We already have a Stone Hall and a Signet Ring, so we're going to go ahead and scoop up the Potion of Knowledge here. The fact that he has initiative is pretty spooky. So his Luna has only died once this game. If his Luna goes left, it's actually very, very scary for us. If the Luna goes left, which it wants to, he'll use Eclipse and blow us out left. He hasn't used a single Eclipse, so the odds of him having Eclipse are very high. Putting the Ogre left, therefore, is pretty risky, because this Ignite will mean 1, 2, 3, and then this will just eat the other 4, and we'll just die. I think I have to put the Ogre right if I want to be safe, because I think this... Oh, very interesting. Luna's going to go right. I wonder what the reasoning behind this is. Because usually the Luna is just more flexible in the left lane. And it's not like he can use the Concussive Shot off of initiative. This is super interesting. So he can blow me up. I mean, he's got initiative, so he's got the power, right? He can use Mystic Flare or Eclipse. But the reason we're not too worried about that is he doesn't have a Sanctum developed here already. So he can't steal initiative back, right? This is where if he had a Sanctum here, he would just kind of win the game, because not only can he blow me up, but then he can refresh, play like a Foresight, play Arcane Assault, and then just blow me up here again. You know, if he has a Sanctum here, then he can just keep doing that, right? It's just a massive chain opportunity. So Thunder Gods kills the Skywrath, threatens the Luna, but we have no mana to play mid and we'll have lost the initiative at that point, so the Luna will just blow us up. It's really important controlling this Luna lane in particular, so we might literally have to pass here. We could pray. He hasn't used that at any cost yet, and it's very likely that he has it as an option.
seconds remaining. 3.
This is a very bizarre situation. It's really weird not having Arcane of the Assault in hand or not controlling the Glyph lane. We want to be able to blow the Luna up so we can blink the Ogre right and control it. And he can still play more cards here. His Prayer of the Weeks are pretty much not getting better than right now. Just deal 8 damage at exchange for feeding him gold next turn. It's obviously a card that will kind of hold you back in the mirror typically. I think it is too important having initiative right though. I need to start trying to control mid lane again, because losing control of the Glyph lane is just too weak, I think. So we need to blow up the Luna right and then equip Blink. So our Luna's dying off of the Conflagration already. We need to blow up his Luna and then blink the Ogre from right to mid so that we can start trying to control this Glyph lane. Having an uncontested lane is simply too strong. So now the only question here is, what tool do we use? Do we use Eclipse to kill this creep as well? Or do we Mystic Flare to hold on to another, another Eclipse? I think at this point, it's probably going to be better to just blow up the Luna here with Eclipse. At the same time, we actually get more dogs if we really want to Prayer on the Week. I don't honestly know that we do. I think this game is closing out a little too fast for all of these Eclipse to be valuable. I'd rather kill this creep and just... I'm only dealing like 2 damage to tower by killing this creep though.
1 minute until forced surrender.
And honestly, cloning Flare is literally better than cloning Eclipse, which is really sad, just because Eclipse doesn't actually spawn with charges when it clones. So we have the ability to deportal here. Normally a bad play playing this into Conflagration, but a good player multicast this every time. There's the deportal. And we can even Pray on the Week next turn when these creeps get wounded by this. So we multicasted the deportal. Pretty good value. I'm going to go ahead and play this deportal that I find in my hand. A good player will multicast this every single time. Here's the deportal coming in hot, and here's the third one coming into our hand. This is part of what you can really tell the difference between like a good player and a bad player for mono blue. The good player will be able to multicast every single time. So we've kind of reestablished control over this right lane for free. Off of, I mean, what I've kind of learned to just associate with ass pull value. Like we just ass pulled 3-dimensional portals, and there's basically nothing he could really do about that. Here we can start looking at the Jasper Daggers. Being able to take off his Glyph of Confusion when he develops it is actually useful. But again, keep in mind, it doesn't work on our own because Jasper Daggers only removes opponent's effects. So he's got the initiative now, which means he's got all the power. His Eclipse is at 8 charges, I believe, if I'm counting correctly, which means 1, 2, 3, and then 4 from here. So if we want to control left lane, we're going to have to double develop these left, which plays into Annihilation. The reason Eclipse is so powerful is because if you undercommit the lane, they Eclipse you and blow you out. If you overcommit, they Annihilate. So you're kind of giving him too good of an option either way, and that's very spooky.
15 seconds remaining.
I don't want to get Annihilated. I think an Annihilation here would kind of also be spooky. There's a good chance he'll develop a second hero left. I'll have to take this risk. So his Annihilation is pretty good here. It's not like what I'd consider to be the best thing ever. The most important thing about this Annihilation is it passes back initiative to me in the mid lane, right? And now that we have this Glyph of Confusion on the mid lane that both players are fighting for, whoever wins this fight gets to own this mid lane with Glyph, which is really important. His Annihilation becomes fundamentally weaker, right? And you have to think about initiative like that. You have to think about it as this sort of like zigzag, right? Like, if initiative matters a lot here, then it kind of doesn't matter as much here, unless you're able to re-steal it, but with Annihilation, you can never re-steal initiative after using it. So you have to really be thinking about the future turns. Don't commit for initiative in one lane if the lane after that also demands initiative, and you're just basically choosing which lane to win, right? Because you don't want to commit value just to choose a lane to win. So here's a flare. It's going to go ahead and blow up our Skywrath. Now, we unfortunately don't have a Sanctum, so whatever we play, we can't recommit initiative. Normally, this is where you have Sanctum, so you blow him up. Thunder Gods on the Skywrath is perfect. I would Thunder Gods, Static Field kills it, damages these, tap Sanctum for initiative, re-steal with Arcane or whatever, and then go mid and win. Unfortunately, I can't do that. That makes me really sad. So I just have no choice but to pass for initiative here. Now, he's used his own mana, so he can't Sanctum or Arcane Assault either, which means we're controlling the middle lane. And the middle lane right now is King, because it's got the glyph on it. Still got a lot of Eclipse charges as well. I think locking him out of this is too good not to do, I suspect. So Diabolic is powerful, but extremely costly. We lose all of our creeps on the right side this turn due to Conflagration. I think we have to wait until next turn to Diabolic, which is a little sad, but probably just fully necessary here. We have to determine whether it's a good idea to heal our Ogre off of Fountain Flask. If he's using double Thunder God's Wrath, I'm honestly a little scared right now. We could also consider using either Deep Portal or Thunder God's Wrath. Thunder Gods could set up a second Thunder Gods next turn, which is pretty powerful, or Deep Portal could just multicast and just win us the game. I think
In 20 seconds.
the Deep Portal here is just a better play, probably. It's really, really close between these, but because they're coming out stunned, I do need them to just come out with a bit more health. And we don't even mind using Prey on the Weak here because they'll just kind of allow us to spawn dogs. As you can see, we're really close to out of time, and that's just kind of the state that this deck will operate on, right? Like, that's just how this deck will be.
The weak must be stronger.
Yep. Pretty good Prey on the Weak for him, but what are you going to do? Actually, this is honestly kind of shitty. I don't even know if I would have done that there. The problem with this Prey on the Weak is it staves off some of our tower damage, but he's basically kind of feeding us gold, right? Like, these creeps were dead to Conflagration, so any of his dogs just hitting this right now are basically just feeding us gold in exchange for his tower having more health, which is important for him, but it's still at 20, so it's still in bolt range when we get to that. Nothing really relevant we can buy here. I mean, we have cloaks that we just don't have initiative to even be able to equip, which is nasty. And our Luna has this Furland Mantle still, which kind of allows us to still control this left lane. Now, this is kind of a spooky Annihilation that he didn't use last turn, so we could go for the right lane instead. Not a bad Annihilation on our part. We have the ability to blink the Luna forward, but I think playing it here is just safer, and we have the guaranteed initiative to go and be able to play off of this. So here's where I expect him to start dropping his Eclipses. He's still saved 3, and I think they're hitting... I've actually lost count, which is a bad... That's bad of me. It's actually really important to keep track of these Eclipses. I think his Eclipses should be hitting 9 charges here. No, we've killed the Luna. No, his Eclipses are only 7. Yeah, that's not right. Yep. And that's okay, because we have initiative mid. But the thing that's really not okay about this is we haven't drawn a single one of our Arcane Assaults this game, which is just pretty phenomenally unfortunate. We'll have to basically use the Diabolic Revelation mid and just hope we draw into things. Hope we start multicasting, I think. I think that's really shitty. It sucks to have to, I mean, do something like that, but I think we literally have no choice. I mean, we could hold initiative, but this is kind of our choice. This is our chance to Diabolic. We want to use this on the middle lane where we have the opportunity to multicast. We have the opportunity to draw into like Foresights and Compels that we can multicast. He's got no Hourglass established, so it's what we need. And we're at 10 mana, so he might have the Bolt potential, right? I mean, there's a consideration to just save initiative and annihilate, right? But we need to start drawing our tools at the same time, which really sucks. So we're losing out 4 damage mid because of his Ignite, which means, I mean, if we don't play anything mid, we don't even have lethal here, which is a little unfortunate, but because we have glyph, it might not matter. I don't know. The odds of getting screwed is so high. Well, there's the assault, so now we have no choice but the diabolic. He made our decision for us, which is kind of nice. If we actually just don't draw our can assaults, it looks like we're probably just gonna get blown out though, which is pretty sad. Obviously, this is a really, really tricky matchup. We multicast. We got compel at least. Oh, we can keep chaining at least. Compel is a good draw. It's just more cycle, more multicast potential. Well, I'm not finding assault and I'm not multicasting, which is really sad. Well, I guess I just lose. Well, that blows. His Eclipse is at 7 charges. If I blink the Ogre over, unfortunately, I don't think it makes a difference. If I heal the Ogre up and blink it over, it's 12 plus 9, which kills it off 7 charges perfectly. So it won't make a difference to Eclipse. If he has bolts, we lose no matter what.
15 seconds remaining.
Yeah, unfortunately, there really is just nothing we can actually do here. Man, in the blue mirror, just casually not drawing any of your Arcane Assaults is a really major lose condition, it turns out. Oh well. Sometimes that just happens. We definitely should have won that game off of, you know, how we managed to take control in the mid game. The one turn he used Diabolic Revelation should have single-handedly lost him the game. That was a pretty massive misplay there. But because we didn't have Arcane Assaults all game, there wasn't anything we could do to kind of restabilize our advantage, which kind of sucks, but sometimes that does just happen. Because, you know, the mirror is so predicated on this idea of kind of stealing initiative and holding on to it, right? But basically the idea with playing the mirror is still that. You want to try to minimize the maximum value, you know, min-max, of the opponent's moves for the board clears. So don't establish a board that's too wide. Try to use your swarm tools a little more defensively in most cases, but sometimes you see an opportunity to kind of like push with them a lot more, right? So rule of thumb, use your swarm tools kind of defensively, try to control left lane, and basically go all in on just controlling the board after mana turn 6. That was actually a bit of a weird game, because usually mono blue mirrors are a full blowout one way or the other. One of the players will usually secure advantage and just completely force the opponent out of the game entirely. That didn't really happen that game. Because we controlled we like blew up his pieces at the right time, but he was the one that drew the initiative cards. So neither player could really establish like total dominance on the board. And it looked like he didn't draw his Glyph of Confusion either, or maybe he just didn't elect to use it. So that's the mono blue deck in a nutshell. Those are going to be some two very common matchups you are going to be playing. Again, I highly recommend this deck. It has a ton of potential, and it's going to be an extremely powerful deck. I'm going to take this to, you know, ranked ladder or, you know, whatever their system is. I actually haven't really had a chance to test out like the new kind of rating and progression system, but I'll hit this up on ladder, you know, over the next few days and see how I do, because again, I think that this is probably if I had to say, the single strongest deck in the game right now. And there may emerge a contender to that, and I'm sure there will be counters to this deck. Something like a very efficient red-black mid-range, when played well, could counter this. Maybe a blue-black Vesture deck could counter this, but honestly, I'm not 100% convinced that it can ever really be super reliable. Anyway, that's going to be it for my mono blue deck guide, and I'll see you guys next time.